Why can't Switzerland be invaded? We are living in a rather strange era. It seems that the world is living in peace, or at least that's what we imagine. But in reality, it's far less so. In today's era, war seems like a distant concept. Yet the moment you turn on the television, the most frequent news you hear is likely something like this. The conflict in country A is extremely complicated. Country B's military is intervening in country C. A terrorist attack in city D of country E has killed X people. Organization G has claimed responsibility, and so on. That's when we suddenly realize how dark our world truly is, and the vicious cycle of war is surely far from over. Is there really no safe place left in this world? But in fact, there is such a place. It's a land in Western Europe, nestled amid the majestic, breathtaking nature of the Alps, with an area of over 41,000 square kilometers, a population of 8.5 million people, and for the past 200 years, not a single war has occurred on its soil. That place is Switzerland. So, why is Switzerland so safe? When it comes to Switzerland, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Surely, it's the major banking systems, Nestled chocolate, Ricola, and billion-dollar watch brands like Rolex, Omega, or Cartier. This is a country with a relatively small area, landlocked, and located in the heart of Western Europe. Surrounding Switzerland are mostly the big players of the old continent, such as Germany, France, Italy, and Austria, with only Liechtenstein as a tiny neighboring country. Switzerland boasts one of the highest per capita incomes in the world. Its Human Development Index currently ranks third globally, and its quality of life has become a symbol of excellence. In short, being born in Switzerland is nothing short of winning the grand lottery jackpot of the heavens. Take a look at any map of the powers that have cast their shadow over Europe from 1815 to the present, whether it's the factions of the world wars or the European Union, and you will always notice a strange blank space appearing amidst the most belligerent nations in history. That blank space is Switzerland. What is the reason Switzerland has never been colored in by any superpower during humanity's most horrific wars? What makes Switzerland a nation that is completely impervious to invasion? And why is Switzerland the only country to achieve this? The answer lies in 4 factors unique to this nation, found nowhere else: geography, diplomacy, economic strategy, and meticulous war preparedness. Let's dive into analyzing each factor one by one. Switzerland's geography. It can be said that this is the first factor to consider when analyzing the rise or fall of a nation. Switzerland's terrain is characterized by mountains and hills. In the south of the country lies the Alps, with an average elevation of up to 2.5 kilometers above sea level, an insurmountable obstacle for any army. In northern Switzerland, along the border with France, is the Jura range, smaller in height compared to the Alps but still sufficient to hinder an invasion from that side. These 2 mountain ranges shield the central part of Switzerland, where the terrain is flatter and major cities like Zurich, Bern, and Geneva are concentrated. Thus, Switzerland is protected on its northern and southern flanks. That leaves the east and west. Near the border with France in the west, there is a very narrow strip of land between the Jura Mountains and Lake Geneva, in some places less than 6 kilometers wide, a strategic distance that makes it easy for defensive forces to hold. In the east, where it borders Austria, Switzerland has fewer strategic geographical advantages to counter potential threats, but nature has bestowed upon it another option. Additionally, Switzerland is located at the headwaters of the Rhine River. This river then flows down to the major industrial regions and densely populated areas of western Germany, before continuing to the Netherlands, where it empties into the North Sea. Switzerland holds the lifeblood that sustains half of Germany. This creates an invisible advantage for the nation in case Germany were to become belligerent again. So, it's as if the heavens have draped Switzerland in a bulletproof vest. But how does Switzerland ensure that no one fires a shot at them? Diplomacy in Switzerland. For over 200 years, Switzerland has not participated in any war. It is not a member of powerful Western alliances like the EU or NATO, although it has joined the Schengen Free Movement Agreement, and it wasn't until 2002 that Switzerland joined the United Nations, following a referendum unprecedented in the organization's history. This has been the guiding principle of Swiss diplomacy since 1815. Neutrality. That's why that strange blank space appeared right in the middle of Germany, France, Italy, and Austria. In 1815, the final battle of French Emperor Napoleon ended with victory for the alliance of European powers. The Congress of Vienna was convened, where the great powers decided the fate of post-war Europe, and it was here that Switzerland's permanent neutrality was recognized by France, Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, making it a buffer zone between Austria and France. Former Swiss federal president Hans Rudolf Merz, who served from 2009 to 2010, also affirmed this diplomatic policy as follows: Switzerland is a neutral country and will not join any alliance. That is our tradition. Switzerland's choice to become a neutral nation was a correct and reasonable move. According to the Conventions on the Rights and Obligations of Neutral States, warring parties are not allowed to violate the territory of a neutral country, and legitimate self-defense against acts of aggression from foreign powers is not considered a breach of neutrality. Furthermore, non-belligerent armies are not allowed to recruit citizens of neutral countries, nor are they permitted to transport troops or war equipment through the territory of a neutral country, except for wounded or sick soldiers. This is why, for 2 centuries, Switzerland has remained perfectly fine amidst the wars and conflicts that ravaged its neighbors. It is a neutral nation, and that neutrality is protected by international law. However, there have been cases where empires decided to trample on that international legal framework and brazenly invade neutral countries for their own benefit. 3 big players stand out: Britain, the Soviet Union, and Germany. Britain occupied neutral Iceland to secure a strategic advantage in the North Atlantic against Nazi Germany. The Soviet Union invaded neutral Finland, creating a buffer zone to protect St. Petersburg. Meanwhile, Germany twice disregarded Belgium's neutrality to attack France from a critical weak point. Declaring neutrality alone is not enough. A country must also make others respect its neutrality. And this is where Switzerland's bankers step in. Swiss banking. Switzerland's geography is truly remarkable from a defense perspective, but from an economic standpoint, it's quite unfavorable. Switzerland is landlocked. Its mountainous terrain hinders the rapid development of heavy industry and transportation. Its natural resources are extremely scarce, and its population is only around 10 million, unevenly distributed. Therefore, the Swiss export a very expensive commodity that narrow-minded, suspicious people cannot afford to buy: trust, specifically the trust of Swiss banks. Associated with the image of banking, Swiss banks are referenced in everything from Dan Brown's novels to James Bond films. These banks are of immense importance to the economy and national security of the country. The nation is renowned for its stringent customer confidentiality at its financial institutions, and a scandal in the 1930s involving the leak of personal customer information led to even stricter regulations. Only senior managers are allowed to access detailed account holder information, while tellers are not permitted to do so. Furthermore, Swiss law strictly prohibits the disclosure of customer information to any third party, whether it's tax authorities, governments, or investigative agencies of any country, including Switzerland, unless there is a court order from a Swiss court. Employees who violate this face fines, compensation, imprisonment, and a permanent ban from the profession. As a neutral nation, Switzerland decided to expand its banking services to the world, and the Swiss banking industry truly boomed during World War II. What they did during this war was to declare to the world, "I have no interest in joining this war game, don't invade me, but if you want a safe place to store your money in these chaotic times, welcome to Switzerland." High-ranking Nazi officials amassed vast amounts of money and gold from their plundering wars. They brought their valuable assets to Switzerland, hoping their wealth would remain safe until the war ended, at which point they could return to retrieve and spend it. Hitler once planned to invade Switzerland, declaring it a stain on the German race, an archenemy of Greater Germany, with both its government and people utterly despicable, but preoccupied with military campaigns across Europe and unwilling to lose a safe haven for their money. The Nazis left Switzerland untouched. The Allies were openly frustrated to see Switzerland secretly dealing with their enemy, but they didn't want to complicate matters further when things were already chaotic enough, so they left Switzerland alone. It wasn't just the Nazis. Many wealthy Jewish tycoons also came to Switzerland for similar reasons. The war ended unfavorably for the Axis powers, with some Nazi officers executed or imprisoned for life, others fleeing their past to live in hiding, not to mention Jewish merchants who perished in concentration camps, leaving their gold and money locked forever in Swiss bank vaults, significantly contributing to the Swiss economy. According to the OECD, the total assets of Swiss banks account for 467% of the country's GDP. Today, Switzerland is the world's bank. Thanks to favorable confidentiality and tax policies, along with a stable economy and political system, an increasing number of the global elite deposit their money in Switzerland, including tech billionaires, oil tycoons, financial magnates, government officials, and even religious figures. Not to mention, Switzerland is also a favored destination for shady dealings, money laundering, tax evasion, mafia activities, arms trafficking, corruption, and embezzlement. Thanks to its confidentiality, who knows, maybe a wealthy, powerful figure you see on TV or social media, or even officials facing the heat, might have an account in Switzerland. Are you a successful American entrepreneur entangled in a lawsuit, wanting to protect your assets from being frozen if you lose? Are you a Russian mafia boss, selling thousands of guns to gangs and needing a safe place to stash your cash? Are you a high-ranking communist official in China, having embezzled truckloads of money and fearing a crackdown? Open a Swiss bank account. At that point, even if you get caught, your money will still be safe. You might say, clearly, the Swiss play dirty. But can you name a country that always plays clean? It is precisely this export of trust that has helped Switzerland secure its national security from all sides. Many clients of Swiss banks are influential figures in politics and the underworld. The whole world is depositing money in Switzerland, so anyone declaring war on Switzerland is essentially declaring war on the entire world, as everyone's money would then be at risk. Thus, not only has Switzerland declared neutrality to humanity, but it has also made humanity protect its neutrality. As long as money remains the axis on which the world turns, Switzerland will remain strong. However, let's suppose there is a country determined to invade Switzerland, one that doesn't care about geography, flips the middle finger at international law, and is indifferent to the banking issue. Would they succeed? The answer is a resolute no, because Switzerland holds a tremendous strength. That strength lies in its own people. Si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. If you want peace, prepare for war. This Latin proverb is the guiding principle of Switzerland. If you were to compare the level of war readiness with Switzerland, even South Korea might seem like Iceland. All male citizens aged 18 and above in the country are required to serve in the military. Those unwilling or unable to serve in the military can undergo basic weapons training in the form of community service. Due to its strong militarization, Switzerland is a nation with exceptionally high discipline. When a general mobilization order is issued, they can muster 200,000 soldiers within the first 72 hours. Notably, after completing their service, these citizens are allowed to keep all their military gear, from uniforms, backpacks, and boots, to even gas masks, helmets, body armor, and guns. Yes, guns. Switzerland has a gun culture rivaling that of the United States. In 2017, there were 28 guns for every 100 Swiss people. The country even holds an annual traditional shooting festival, where people gather to compete in shooting and enjoy drinks, and they even have shooting schools for children. It may sound crazy, but Switzerland's gun culture is very different from that of the U.S. In Switzerland, people are taught that holding a gun is a responsibility for national security, not for self-defense or personal hobbies. In the U.S., you can buy a gun as easily as buying vegetables at the market, but if you want to buy a gun in Switzerland, you'll have to fill out a ton of paperwork, undergo police background checks, and attend proper training courses, all to prove you're not a societal threat, and you're only allowed to buy a limited number of guns. Furthermore, you're not allowed to buy it or keep ammunition. Ammunition is provided at shooting ranges or during general mobilization. You also need a permit to carry a gun on your person or keep one in your car. Above all, the vast majority of Swiss people keep guns because they trust their government, whereas in the U.S., it's the opposite. The evidence lies in the fact that, despite having so many guns, Switzerland's homicide rate is 0.59 per 100,000 people, according to 2018 data, with only 50 victims, one of the lowest in the world. In contrast, the U.S. rate is 4.96 per 100,000, with over 16,000 victims. Thanks to this gun culture, Switzerland can effectively deploy guerrilla tactics to counter stronger enemies in the event of war. The Swiss strategy would be to retreat to rugged mountainous areas and make life as miserable as possible for the enemy. At key transportation infrastructure such as highways, tunnels, suspension bridges, or railways, the Swiss military has planted numerous explosives to detonate and sever enemy mechanized supply lines. It's estimated that Switzerland has over 3,000 such locations. Additionally, Switzerland has what are called dragon's teeth, concrete structures resembling chocolate bars, designed to slow down tanks, making them easy targets for anti-tank weapons. While most countries have demolished such structures, Switzerland has not. The Swiss, much like the Vietnamese or the Finns, are masters of camouflage in warfare. Many houses, rocks, and hills appear completely harmless, but are actually miniature military bases. Villa Rose in the town of Nyon, a strategically important location on Switzerland's map, as mentioned earlier, is actually a camouflaged mini-fortress located near a barbed wire fence. The shack to the right looks like an innocent horse stable, but it hides an anti-tank cannon and a machine gun nest. Inside this rock outcrop is an excellent military base, as it offers a strategic view of the city, river, railway, and bridge below. Not only that, beneath the majestic Alps lie intricately hidden airfields and aircraft storage facilities. The Swiss conceal the existence of these bases. There was once a time when Swiss soldiers mentioned them online, but such information was quickly removed from the internet. Switzerland has an air force in the Alps, but where those airfields are, no one knows. This is precisely the message Switzerland wants to send to anyone planning to use air forces to attack the country. Speaking of hidden things in Switzerland, we cannot overlook the bunkers. Since nuclear weapons were first used in 1945, followed by the ideological conflict between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, Switzerland has always been concerned about the risk of nuclear war. Therefore, a vast network of bunkers has been built across the country to ensure that every Swiss citizen can be safe in the event of a nuclear war. Today, anyone building a new house in Switzerland must ensure it includes a bunker capable of withstanding a nuclear explosion. Alternatively, if the cost is prohibitive, you must pay to reserve a spot in a public bunker in your area. Public bunkers are located in administrative buildings, train stations, and other high-traffic areas. In the Alps, of course, there is a massive number of bunkers serving both military and civilian purposes. Switzerland's bunkers can currently accommodate 113% of the country's population, and within a few months, they have even accounted for a large influx of refugees seeking shelter in Switzerland. The risk of nuclear war has not been a pressing concern since the end of the Cold War. Many former doomsday bunkers have now become tourist attractions and entertainment venues, while family bunkers, remember, wine and cheese are key elements of Swiss culture, have become wine and cheese sellers. Of course, if nuclear war looms again, these bunkers will revert to their original purpose. When the radioactive dust settles, it's highly likely that the world will be left with only national leaders, cockroaches, and 8.5 million Swiss people. If nuclear war cannot defeat them, what can? Thanks to its geographical barriers, neutral diplomacy, economic strength, and military strategy, Switzerland is truly like a giant trap hidden within a giant fortress, challenging even the most powerful war machines. A peaceful nation with stunning natural beauty, a transparent government, direct democracy, high quality of life, progressive and civilized ideals, abundant income, and guaranteed security. Switzerland is, in essence, the most perfect country in the world. So start saving money now, and remember, if sometime around the 2030s you hear news of an Austrian man with a strange mustache passionately addressing an angry crowd in Berlin, it's time to book a plane ticket to Switzerland. Counterarguments. Switzerland was once invaded by the Romans, ruled by the Germans and Austrians for thousands of years, and later invaded again by Napoleon as part of the Austro-German region, only to be restored primarily to serve as a power buffer between Austria and France. The Congress of Vienna from 1814 to 1815 redrew the map of Europe after defeating France, creating an independent Switzerland by incorporating some territories from Austria, Italy, and France into Swiss land. The key point was that the big players affirmed Switzerland's autonomy in the treaty. When this nation was born, its primary purpose was to prevent the French from reaching into southern German cities and vice versa. A similar story unfolded in the Flanders region, which was divided into 3 countries: Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, as well as Ukraine. In general, the way Western nations resolved conflicts at the time was simple. If a region could not be settled through force, it was granted independence as a separate nation, with the main goal of this independence process being to curb the strength of the French Revolution, which was spreading across Europe at the time, through regional nationalism. It should be noted that the concepts of the French nation, French citizenship, and the French state were pioneered by Napoleon, giving rise to what the French call the glory of France, which began to spread outward. Furthermore, throughout its history, Switzerland has been heavily influenced by 3 major powers. The first is France, the large and powerful nation right next door, with over 30% of Swiss territory once being French land through the Burgundian nobility. France exerted influence into southern Germany and northern Italy, and Swiss mercenaries were a crucial recruitment source for the French army, even to this day. Another major influence on Switzerland is the papacy. Although much of the Swiss Confederation follows Protestantism, the birth of Switzerland bears a strong political imprint of the papacy, to the extent that at one point, funds from the Vatican were the only thing sustaining the Swiss people. Finally, the greatest influence on Switzerland is arguably Germany, or more precisely, the cities of southern Germany. To understand this, we first need to grasp a bit about Germany's geography. Historically, Germany has seen a clear division among its agricultural regions. Southern Germany, with fertile land ideal for growing barley, formed the foundation for prosperous agricultural kingdoms. Northwestern Germany, with its advantageous ports, gave rise to commercial cities. In contrast, the sandy lands of northeastern Germany, unsuitable for barley, produced renowned mercenary armies, laying the financial groundwork for the Prussian Empire, much like the Brandenburgers. The Swiss became famous for their mercenaries, a country with fragmented terrain that hindered agricultural development, but whose high mountains produced tall, strong warriors. Thus, the Swiss became a key recruitment source for all surrounding kingdoms, including France, the Holy Roman Empire, Austria, and Italy. However, nowhere consumed more Swiss mercenaries than southern Germany, a region blessed with fertile land, natural abundance, sparse population, and numerous city-states. For hundreds of years, Switzerland's main GDP came from mercenary work. Unlike Prussia, Switzerland did not unify due to divisions among city-states with differing political views, and unlike Ukraine, Switzerland existed in a multipolar order, influenced by too many nations. First, it must be acknowledged that Switzerland played a massive role in the rise of Nazi Germany. Swiss banks emerged with the task of handling the endless gold amassed from mercenary expeditions. At one time, these banks specialized in managing the dirty underground transactions of all of Europe, but in reality, it was only after World War I that Swiss banks truly demonstrated their power. We know that Germany was the defeated nation in World War I and was subjected to an almost endless series of economic sanctions by the victorious nations, Britain and France. In that context, nearly 100% of Germany's international accounts were frozen, with Switzerland being the only country not to freeze these accounts. Therefore, at that time, all money flowing in and out of Germany passed through Switzerland. During World War I, the U.S. stood alongside Britain and France as victors. But the most powerful force in America at the time, the German-origin capitalist group, was deeply resentful, watching Greater Germany humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles. In fact, as early as 1924, an organization called the Free Religious Group was established in Chicago, which by 1932 was renamed Friends of the Hitler Movement, after Hitler was released from prison and openly ran for office. This organization became a bridge connecting Chicago's capitalist class, namely the Rockefellers and Kennedys, with the rise of the Nazi Party. According to a study published in the Times in 2018, this organization provided Hitler with up to $1.8 billion in today's equivalent value. And interestingly, the person who played the role of organizing this financial architecture was Prescott Bush, father of President George Herbert Bush and grandfather of President George W. Bush, through the Union Banking Corporation. After Hitler came to power, Swiss banks played a crucial role in rearming Germany through the MIFO plan, implemented by the German Central Bank. At this time, the Rockefellers and Kennedys openly poured money into German universities, which turned out to be bases for German research into new types of weapons. The MIFO funds reached such levels that in 1938 alone, they were worth 12 billion Reichsmarks. For comparison, a new Panther tank cost 150,000 Reichsmarks, a Tiger tank cost 250,000 Reichsmarks, and the total government bonds issued by Germany that year were only 19 billion Reichsmarks. German High Command planned Operation Tannenbaum to invade Switzerland more than once, even calculating the use of 4 experienced Italian mountain divisions and 2 paratrooper divisions. However, all plans were cancelled because Switzerland adhered to a policy of absolute neutrality, severely restricting immigration from other countries. Throughout the war, Switzerland only accepted 644 Jewish refugees who escaped from Germany. Worse still, Switzerland fully opened its banking sector to gold transfer transactions between Germany and the U.S. from 1939 to 1945, handling over 3,000 gold transactions between Germany and the U.S. Other German assets stored in Swiss banks have not been fully reported, not to mention the tens of billions of dollars worth, in today's value, of assets belonging to Jews killed in Germany that were never returned. Thus, Switzerland survived World War II, simply because the nation chose to act as a tool for Nazi Germany and reaped enormous profits from it. Why did Germany have to conduct transactions through Switzerland? Because it was the only way for them to bypass the encirclement of the Treaty of Versailles and the watchful eyes of the British, through transactions in Swiss francs in non-public interbank accounts. This also enabled Germany to purchase metals it lacked, such as tungsten, chromium, and so on. To elaborate, Germany's domestic resources had very little tungsten, a crucial material in producing super-strong and lightweight steel for fighter planes. Germany had to buy tungsten from Portugal, Turkey, and even Switzerland itself. It can be said that without Swiss banks, it would have been extremely difficult for Germany to produce 20,000 F-190s, 6,000 Panthers, and thousands of Tigers and Tiger IIs during the period from 1939 to 1945. Especially when the Swiss franc was the freest currency, still comfortably traded globally. All the money Germany earned from selling gold was used to buy goods and metals from neutral countries. Switzerland's history during that time is full of stains, but the Swiss are aware of their history. They admit they collaborated with Hitler to survive. Switzerland was not invaded or occupied after the war because it maintained its role as a neutral nation, while also serving as a bridge between East and West, as both the Soviet Union and the U.S. chose Zurich as a neutral ground for bilateral negotiations. Switzerland continued its policy of neutrality, adopting the strategy of joining as many international organizations as possible, maximizing its role in international mediation, and emphasizing its role as an intermediary, including in the Indochina peace talks in Geneva in 1954. In reality, Switzerland is not a nation that cannot be invaded. The Swiss military is weak and could easily be broken by just a few bombing raids. The entire country could be easily invaded, to the extent that they prepared plans to abandon half of the country if attacked, retreating to bunkers to fight. Therefore, the Swiss understand better than anyone that danger always lurks outside. They choose a disciplined and frugal lifestyle, as well as pragmatism and constant amiability in the way their nation has survived. In other words, they handle the dirtiest aspects of humanity, while simultaneously building and protecting the most humane aspects of humanity. What do you think of the assessments and arguments presented in the video? Don't hesitate to share your opinions in the comments section below.